Hello everyone and welcome to the JB&M Sports Fanatic channel. So for today's video, we will be discussing the confirmed reports that Deshaun Watson is currently unhappy and seeking a trade out of Houston. I will be talking about reasons that have led Deshaun Watson to this point of wanting to be out of Houston, as well as the team that he would like to be traded to. So some of the reasons that I feel have led Deshaun Watson to come to the conclusion of wanting to be traded from the Houston Texans is quite simply he's lost faith in the organization. And that's pretty obvious for a number of reasons. The Texans have allowed Bill O'Brien to set the organization on a path that is currently headed towards a downward spiral. It all started March of 2019, or maybe not started, but it definitely didn't help when he lost his favorite receiving weapon in DeAndre Hopkins, in which Bill O'Brien basically traded him away for David Johnson. Really, he did not get much in return for that trade. There was no reason to make that trade. And Deshaun Watson also expressed during the offseason last year his thoughts in terms of did not necessarily meet what Watson was expecting in terms of just communicating where the Houston Texans organization stood in that regards. The Texans did not inform Watson that they were going to be hiring GM Nick Caserio, which according to NFL media, McNair had informed Watson that he would be involved in the search for the new GM and head coach, as well as be able to provide feedback in that search. And so that was the expectation when they agreed to the contract extension, and they decided to forego including Watson in the decision, which is very understandable why he would be upset after something like that. Watson has really been advocating hard for the Houston Texans to hire Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, who happens to be a very hot offensive candidate. Matter of fact, the Houston Texans are currently the only team right now that is searching to fill their head coach vacancy that has not reached out to schedule an interview with Eric Bieniemy as of the moment. So that definitely is adding fuel to the fire, and why Deshaun Watson tweeted that some things never change, and he definitely wants out of Houston.
One thing I have realized, that if God don't do it, it just won't get done.
Stated that he is currently open to being traded to the Miami Dolphins, and that a trade to the Dolphins would definitely send Tua Tagovailoa, as well as some additional compensation draft picks to the Houston Texans if that trade were to go down. He has a no trade clause, which he recently signed in that $156 million extension, meaning that he would have to sign off on any trade that were to take place between the Houston Texans and any organization. So therefore, he has more control as to where he would like to be sent in the case that the Houston Texans would actually trade him. So that definitely puts Houston in a bit of a bind if they were to think about trading Deshaun Watson. They definitely would have limited options as to where he would actually be willing to go. The Dolphins, they do have many pieces in place that would be a good fit for Deshaun Watson in terms of being competitive and in a great situation. There's no doubt that the Dolphins, from this past season, having failed just one game short of making the playoffs, that they are invested in turning this team into a competitive team for future years, and that would definitely play to what Deshaun Watson is looking for in terms of competitiveness. Obviously, who would not want to live in Miami with the wonderful weather? So it just definitely works out for Deshaun Watson. So I can definitely see why he would want to go there. Will the Texans trade Deshaun Watson? Should they consider it? Now, should the Houston Texans trade Deshaun Watson? That is the question, and would they consider it? According to John McClain of the Houston Chronicle, in no circumstances will the Texans trade Watson, adding that if Watson were to ask for a trade, that quite frankly, he's not going anywhere. In reality, the Houston Texans, they really can't afford to trade Deshaun Watson. He is perhaps their only ray of hope in turning this team around fast in the foreseeable future. Although the team struggled last year, Deshaun Watson was arguably perhaps the only bright spot for them. I wouldn't say only, but majority of their success was generated through Deshaun Watson, with approximately accounting for 88% of the team's total offense this past season. Any quarterback that they were to get in exchange for a trade, just quite frankly, would not be Deshaun Watson. They would not be able to mimic the success that you can expect from a Deshaun Watson. And even if they drafted a quarterback in which you would have to think without having a first round pick, they really would be at a disadvantage in terms of drafting a quarterback to replace him this season. And even if they did get someone, it probably would take a couple years before they would be able to match the level that Deshaun Watson plays at. So definitely wouldn't make much sense for the Houston Texans to trade him. And as I mentioned before, that no trade clause really would limit what they'd be able to get in return for Deshaun Watson. So yeah, if you're Houston, you're definitely not wanting to add Watson to the list of stars like DeAndre Hopkins that you just gave away and got nothing in return for, essentially. So, should the Miami Dolphins trade for Deshaun Watson, or should they stick with Tua? The obvious answer is that if you're the Miami Dolphins, you want to do what's going to put you in the best position to be most competitive, and if you have the chance to land Deshaun Watson, you definitely go ahead and make that trade happen. You have to bring in him. He's a top 3 caliber quarterback. He's currently still in his prime. And the Dolphins offense, even with Ryan Fitzpatrick last year, they showed that they looked a little better than when they had Tua in at quarterback. Part of that might be just the coaching style once they had Tua in, not to mention some of the injuries at the receivers. So maybe they had to dial back their aggressiveness a bit. But there's no doubt if Deshaun Watson is in there, he could definitely elevate this offense to newer heights and give them the chance to remain competitive over the next, say, 5 years or more than that. So that's definitely something that you have to do if you're the Miami Dolphins. The concerns that come with Tua, obviously there's a lot of speculation as to whether or not the Dolphins are going to consider drafting a quarterback to replace him with the 3rd overall pick. I think that they should not take the route of drafting another quarterback. I mean, obviously, there's no secret that Trevor Lawrence will be the first pick of the draft, most likely by the Jacksonville Jaguars, unless something unforeseen happens. And so, of the remaining quarterbacks, it's really just going to be probably the odds are that you really don't know if you're getting someone that's truly going to be better than Tua. And I mean, Tua's shown enough promise to where you shouldn't just give up on him already. It just would not be advantageous to spend another high pick on a quarterback when you've already drafted Tua with the plans of being the quarterback of the future. Of course, if you're trading him for Deshaun Watson, that's a completely different scenario in which you definitely have to do that. It just puts you in a better position to win, both currently and long term, because Deshaun Watson is definitely young enough to where he can be around for a while and be the new face of the franchise. So how do I expect this to play out in the off season? Well, ultimately, it's obvious that Deshaun Watson has lost faith in the organization, and he seems to be growing more frustrated by the minute. If they don't hire Eric Bieniemy, I think that, or at least give him an interview and make it seem as if they're seriously considering him, I just don't think it's going to get better ultimately. The chances of Deshaun Watson getting traded, I think that that's going to continue to grow. And if Watson decides that he's going to be holding out and drags this out, then I could definitely see a scenario where the Houston Texans would just want to trade him. I mean, you're going to have a new head coach eventually. You've got a new GM. You don't want to start over without Watson, but at the same time, if he doesn't want to be there, you want guys that want to be, that's going to buy into the system. So at some point, I feel that they would have to at least be open to trading Watson and see what they can get in return. And that's ultimately what's going to decide if he gets traded or not. If the Dolphins were to be interested, what are they willing to give up in exchange for Deshaun Watson? So I personally, if I had to say whether or not I think this is going to happen, I think it'll happen. I think that it will happen this off season. Obviously, there's a lot of things that's going to happen, but I expect that as we get closer to the draft, at the very least, things are going to get heated up for trade discussions involving Deshaun Watson. Although Houston will probably publicly say that they're not looking to ship him. So yeah, that concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Your support is definitely very much appreciated. Be sure to comment and tell me if you think that the Houston Texans should trade Deshaun Watson, and will they trade him, and if you think the Dolphins will be interested in that trade. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and be sure that if you know people that you feel would also be interested in my content that I provide, be sure to share this with them as well, so we can continue to grow this channel and I can be able to post more videos for you. Till then, signing out, and look forward to talking with you guys next video.